Hi, curious minds and headline hunters, and welcome to another episode of Talk, Listen, and Discuss. I wanted to share a mysterious disappearance from my hometown of Wichita Falls, Texas. But before I jump into the mysterious disappearance of Keith Mann in 1997, I wanted to give you a general overview of my hometown and how it would have looked at that time. Wichita Falls in 1997 was a mid-sized North Texas city with a population of about 95,000 to 97,000 people. It sat near, and it still does, sit near the Oklahoma border, about 2 hours northwest of Dallas-Fort Worth, and was known as a regional hub for shopping, medical care, and the military community. Here is a picture of what it was like then. Wichita Falls had a small city with a military base feel, and it does. I'm from there, of course, as I said. I was born there and raised there. And Wichita Falls, while not a small town of like 800 or 1,000 that you would drive through on your way somewhere, it really is a town that feels smaller than what it is. People seem to know everybody, and secrets aren't held tightly there. It really is like that. It's a country, cozy, nosy neighbor next door with a friendly smile, open the door for you, pull out a chair kind of attitude, atmosphere. It's a plus in a lot of ways, but sometimes there are minuses to that. But what I also wanted to let you know about this city and the small town feel is that it really is one of the last cities that you can stop at along the highway if you're going skiing or hunting in New Mexico or Colorado area. It is one of the last major cities that you can stop and have a good meal, have a good place to stay, and really just be able to feel safe for the most part. The city was quieter compared to the boom years of the oil industry in the 1980s, but was stabilizing by the mid 90s. So, yes, Wichita Falls did get its major influx of economy, cash, productivity, things like that, jobs from the railroad, from the military, from the manufacturing that was there, as well as the oil industry. Downtown Wichita Falls was in the middle of transition, still is, with some businesses struggling while others try to revitalize the area. That's still going on to this very day. Shepherd Air Force Base brought in the airmen and their families from all over the U.S. and NATO counties, adding diversity to what was otherwise a very Texas-rooted town, 100%. Whatever exposure we had to international affairs did come from our Shepherd Air Force Base peers, friends, family members. And that was what a lot of my international diversity experiences were when I went to high school, because that is where a lot of the military students ended up going for their education. Wichita Falls leaned heavily family oriented and conservative, with church life and Friday night football as social cornerstones. Shopping and social life revolved around Psych Center Mall. Yeah, that is a lot of memories. There's a lot of memories with Psych Center Mall, and yet it's becoming such a ghost town. I don't even know if it's open anymore. The structure's still there, but very few stores are open, I believe, and a lot are closed. And I think there's one or two restaurants that still open their doors in that mall. Movie theaters like Carmikey Cinemas and local diners. We have so many restaurants there. That is actually one of the favorite pastimes, is to go out to eat there. Country music and class rocket Country music and classic rock dominated local radio, still does, but hip hop and alternative were creeping in among younger crowds, most definitely. Education there is Midwestern State University, my alma mater, was growing steadily, providing cultural events, sports, and a younger energy. Great college. I highly recommend it. Definitely consider it for your student. Local high schools, Ryder, Hershey, and Wichita Falls High, Old High, had strong rivalries, especially in football. Yes, we had some awesome football rivalries. The economy and crime there, the unemployment rate in Wichita Falls during the late 90s was moderate, with many jobs tied to Shepherd Air Force Base, healthcare, and regional retail. Like many Texas towns of the time, Wichita Falls had gang activity and drug issues, mostly tied to meth and cocaine. Property crime was relatively high compared to violent crime. The lifestyle in 1997, a lot of entertainment was local and outdoors, fishing and boating at Lake Wichita, camping at Lake Arrowhead State Park, and high school sports, all still the same. Families gathered at fairs, rodeos, and Hotter than Hell 100, the massive cycling event, still the same. Cost of living was very low, with many families able to buy homes on modest incomes. Okay, so what I could delve from the crime rates around 1997 were it was a little bit, I had to glean from around the area and around the state itself, but this is kind of like what it would have looked like in 1997. The HUD Consolidated Plan from 1996 to 97 reveals that the city had just over 2.8 million in federal funding for community development, including housing rehab, sidewalks, public services, and code enforcement, suggesting active investment in low-income neighborhoods, such as the one I grew up in, to address safety and infrastructure. In 2000, Wichita Falls had a violent crime rate of approximately 569.5 per 100,000 and a property crime rate of 5,524.5 per 100,000. So around that time, violent crime rates peaked substantially between the 1997s and early 2000s. So it is reasonable to infer that in 1997, Wichita Falls likely had elevated crime rates. It did, potentially trending upward, preceding the spike seen in the early 2000s. The Wichita Falls Police Department underwent significant developments in the mid 1990s. In 1993, Wichita Falls Police Department initiated community policing in targeted high crime neighborhoods such as mine. By March 1996, this approach was expanded citywide with 36 officers assigned to beats focused on building neighborhood partnerships and problem solving. In 1996, WFPD received the Weber CV Excellence in Law Enforcement Award for a project aimed at reducing prostitution in South Central neighborhoods from 1994 to 1995. The area saw weapon violations and prostitutions decline dramatically, and overall crime in the neighborhood dropped by 11%. These efforts suggest that by 1997, the department was relatively progressive, emphasizing community-based strategies and showing early crime reduction results in some areas. Around that time, we also would have seen that the city finances were around 2.8 million in federal funding for that 1997-97 year for the community infrastructure programs with a broader budget. Details not readily available online, but at that time I do remember that the city was gearing up to do a lot of restoration, especially to get public parks for visitors to the city to enjoy, as well as the people that were, of course, living there in Wichita Falls to enjoy. So this is the kind of city where Keith Mann would have been living at the time. So I'm going to go ahead and take you to a story because there have been several podcasts, several news articles, online articles about this disappearance in 1997 of my hometown in Wichita Falls. There's really nothing I can add more there except looking from the lens of today on seeing a lot of true crime out there and being a part of the web sleuth researching community where I can kind of start drawing the line on what may have happened at that time. So I'm going to give you the introduction to the story and how it unfolded, and I'm going to end this video by letting you know what I really believe happened because I don't think a lot of people are admitting that this is what happened, but I'm more than comfortable to share my opinion. So this article comes from the local newspaper, Times Record News, and it was written in on May 8th, 2016, 19 years later, Keith Mann's disappearance. Keith Mann vanished 19 years ago. His parents searched for answers. Before I even get into this article, let me tell you this. I feel strongly for families in this position because I could not imagine not ever knowing what happened to my child. I I would be just like the family. I would I know I would because parents, that is our biggest nightmare, that something is going to happen to our children. But with this, not knowing what happened or if they're still out there alive is a living nightmare and heartbreak every single day. So when I present these cases, to me, I really don't try to see them as something intriguing. To me, it is a family in pain, and I'm sharing the story because it's important to me to keep this family's experience out there on the slight possibility that whatever little thing we do here makes a difference in bringing some resolution or even bringing the family member back home. Keith Mann Jr. was working for Ron Roberts Ford when he disappeared on May 10th, 1997 on Mother's Day weekend. Friends dropped him off at the Fountain Gate Apartments near McNeil Junior High School around 11:45 p.m. That was the last time anyone saw him. I'm going to go ahead and give you a mental note here that where he worked, where he lived, his apartment, where his family lived, and a church parking lot, which is going to become a part of the story here in a little bit, they were all very relatively close, within an easy walking distance in a way, and definitely an easy driving distance. So we're talking about minutes here. We're not talking about anything longer than 10 minutes, if even that. I would think maybe closer to about 7 minutes. So along this span of everything I'm going to introduce to you today, everything is very, very, very close in proximity. One of Keith Mann's sisters, Brittany, created the Missing Man Project as her senior design project in 2012 for the International Academy of Design and Technology. Keith has been missing since May 10th, 1997. He disappeared 19 years ago after being dropped off by friends at his apartment. Someone knows something. Where did he go? What did he do? Someone's got to know something. Greg Mann, his hair carefully brushed back, a frown on his brow, asked the questions in rapid fire succession, as if thoughts not meant to be words come pouring from his mind, racing and troubled. He sat quietly at his home on McNeil Avenue, looking to the ground or off to the side for much of the conversation about his son Keith. His wife, Deborah, answers most of the questions. Greg listens. He listens. And from time to time, he will ask a question, sometimes whispering them almost like a prayer. He lets you hear what has torn away pieces of his heart. You've got to act like you're not depressed, he said, the thought spilling to the side as he doesn't make eye contact. Then he looks you in the eye. I feel like I haven't done enough because he's not here. I've seen a lot of interviews with the Manns doing research for for this video, and let me tell you, they are describing the couple perfectly. When Keith was 2, his dad married his stepmother, Deborah, and she was a big part of his life ever since that. 19 years ago, Keith Mann Jr. disappeared, just vanished, leaving nothing but memories and unrelenting questions. It was the strangest thing. It was May 10th, 1997, a Saturday. Mann was out with friends. He didn't have a car. He didn't need one. He used cars occasionally from his employer, Ron Roberts Ford, where he worked as a car salesman. He often drove a different dealership demo car. In the days before his disappearance, it was a 1996 red Ford Mustang. Friends dropped him off around 11:45 p.m., and we're going to be learning more about these friends at Fountain Gate Apartment. Friends dropped him off around 11:45 p.m. at Fountain Gate Apartments near McNeil Junior High School. He had moved there just a month before from his parents' house. We will be learning more about these friends. He recently got engaged, and he and his fiancee, Carrie Kitchens, who just graduated from the community college where they met, wanted to move in together. She was visiting her parents in Dallas that weekend, but had a job lined up in Wichita Falls. Keith had said earlier in the evening he was going to meet someone at 12:15 a.m. early on Mother's Day Sunday. 12:15 a.m. So his friends dropped him off back at his apartment, and a few minutes later, sometime later, early that morning at 12:15 a.m., a very specific time, he was going to meet with someone. The friends to this very day, according to the information we have readily available out there, have not said that he told them exactly who this person was. Another thing I want to note here in a podcast I was listening to yesterday, which I'm going to link here at the bottom of my show description, that even the parents themselves to this very day have not been able to get the police investigative reports. So this was from last year in November, I believe, that the parents announced this. So I didn't even attempt to try to get these records from the city because they still have yet to give me any kind of feedback on the Tamara Holknecht case, which is a video I did on a local hometown mysterious death case there. In fact, they emailed me and pretty much are passing me on to other people. So, I mean, other departments. So I don't really think that I would have success, as the family has not had success in getting these records. But from what I know now, that's readily available out there, including what the family has shared with the community, that the friends have not been able to tell them who he was meeting up with. I don't know if they just didn't ask or if they asked and he didn't say. It's not very clear. He didn't mention who. All anyone knows after he walked up those stairs is that no one ever saw Keith again. Now, he had only lived in these apartments almost a month, not quite a month from what I heard yesterday from his parents in that podcast interview. So he was not really, he didn't really know many of the people there in the apartments, if he knew any at all. Keith Mann was a baseball player like his dad. He's there in pictures in his parents' home in his baseball uniform on one knee. The classic All-American baseball pose, Rider Baseball, that was one of our rival high schools. The school athletic poster says three of them framed in black. He was a soccer player growing up, said Deborah, Keith's stepmom. Since Greg had played baseball and softball, Keith, switched. He went from sitting on the bench to being a star player. Greg nods his head. He looks up, the proud dad. Another picture of Keith sits on a shelf in the living room, sharing a space with a birdhouse, a ceramic basket of flowers, a Bible, and a cross. The Bible verse, John 3:16, is written on the cross. For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish but have eternal life. His one and only son, just 20 years old, planning to get married. Those photographs and their memories are all the family has of Keith. Anyone who lived in Wichita Falls in 1997 knows his face, his smile, his dark hair, but they do not know him from his baseball photographs. They know him from the missing flyers posted all over the town soon after he disappeared, or from the advertisements the man's place in the newspaper around Mother's Day almost every year, or from countless interviews with the media. This is not how his parents want you to know him, as the man on the missing posters. When they hadn't heard from him the next day, Deborah and Carrie started to worry. Greg did not. He just went to the lake, Greg had told them. But then when he still wasn't home by Sunday night, they still hadn't heard from him. They always heard from him. That's when Greg knew something was wrong. Again, this is going to be way before cell phones. So the thought that his grown-up son, his adult son, hadn't reached out to him, a little over a day, did not alert the father at all. And not at that point. They made flyers. They placed them around town. At the time, Greg owned the bus station downtown on 14th Street and had a way to send the flyers to other towns. He checked if Keith might have gotten on a bus. He checked if he might have boarded a plane or made his way out of town any other way. His fiancée said, "What about psychics? You get desperate, Deborah said, but you didn't really want to believe them. You know, I really find that interesting, and I find it very refreshing that Deborah would say that you do get desperate, because in a lot of the cases that not only I, but other web sleuths out there cover, we get hammered for even suggesting that the family gets desperate and starts believing anything, but it's the truth, and I'm so glad that Deborah said it here. I would too. As a mother, I would believe or reach out for anything out there that could give me some kind of hope, relief, resolution, my child back to me. They said he was near water. The family looked near water. Greg even sent flyers to his cousin who lived in Colorado. A man wrote us a letter. He found water through dowsing rods. He gave us more specific locations, Deborah said. Greg even sent him a surveillance map of Wichita Falls. It was going to be 6.1 to 6.3 miles. It will be on the right-hand side. You get out there. Deborah and Greg have asked themselves the same questions over the years. Why was the car Keith was driving, that Ron Roberts Ford red Mustang, parked near their house? The Manns had seen it Sunday morning on their way to church, but didn't even know that it was a demo vehicle Keith had for the weekend. Did Keith leave it there? Did someone else leave it there? The dealership asked its employees to keep those cars clean and leave no personal items inside, which is how the police found it. Why would Keith leave town without his paychecks? Two of them were waiting for him at the dealership Monday. And why was there no trace of him? No tire marks squealing away from his apartment, no signs of a struggle, no personal items missing or found in an unusual place. This is not how his parents want you to know Keith, and it is not how they want you to know them, defined by that one event in their life. But this one event in their life has defined them. We're private people, Deborah said. We're private people, Deborah said, but this tragedy has forced them to share more about their lives than they thought they would. They have to be vocal. They have done countless interviews with the media every year when Mother's Day rolls around. They have kept in touch with police. They never sought help from support groups to deal with their emotions and have followed leads on their own. It was very difficult at first, Deborah said, of hanging all those flyers. I couldn't even imagine. As many times as I read these stories, listen to them, hear them, watch them on TV, on the news, on podcasts. I never can, I couldn't even understand that. I could not imagine, not even begin to imagine how that must feel. Your child is on a missing poster and you have the nail in your hand and a hammer in the other. I can't even imagine that, having to go around this city with such a heartache, such a loss, such fear, and have to put those signs, those kinds of signs up with your child's face looking back at you. I I could not even imagine that. It was very difficult at first, Deborah said, of hanging all those flyers, and Greg didn't handle it well. He wanted to get out and find the person who might have hurt their son, if someone did hurt their son, and hurt them back. Deborah said, looking back on it, maybe it was good they had no leads in those early days. Greg might have done something he would have regretted. God works in his time, she said. They used to go out more often. Greg used to coach baseball. Now they're homebodies. Deborah wonders if people recognize them and wonders what they might be thinking. Do they think those poor parents? Something feels different this year. So this year would have been again in 2016. The Manns usually make a push in the media to retell Keith's case on big anniversaries, the 5th, the 10th. But for some reason, Deborah feels something will happen this year on the 19th anniversary of Keith's disappearance. We've had an intuition, Deborah said. Part of it has to do with the number 9. His number in high school was number 9, Deborah said. Subconsciously, we're feeling 9. We didn't feel it at the 9th anniversary. Part of that spark might have to do with one of Keith's sisters, Brittany. As a senior design project, she created the Missing Man's Project website, a Missing Man Project Facebook page, and made postcards and business card size endangered missing person cards to help Keith's case moving forward. So social media wasn't as pervasive then as it is now. The Manns didn't even have an email account back then. Brittany incorporated hawks in her designs. Whenever Keith saw a hawk while the family drove to a baseball game, the team would win. For him, the hawk became a sign of good luck. She also included a sports saying the family found on a baseball shaped from poster board that was made for an athletic banquet, whatever it takes. It's what the family will do, whatever it takes to bring Keith home. Crime Stoppers is offering a $3,000 reward for any information that leads to finding Keith, though that reward may go as high as $10,000 with family contributions. Wichita Falls Police Detective Brad Love, who took over Keith's case about a year ago, said there are different leads we're trying to track down. So far, there has never been anything solid. And I do believe Brad Love is no longer on that case. And I think Detective Laughlin, John Laughlin, who I mentioned in the Tamara Holknecht case, took that over. But I now suspect he's not on the case. I remember that there was a new cold case lead now, but I can't remember the person's name. If I do remember it, I will put the link, or if I find it, locate it, I'll put the link in the description of this video. Missing persons cases are never closed, said Love, and so Keith's will remain open until it's solved. Love said he frequently speaks to the Manns. I can't fathom what that family is going through. They live with it daily. We'd like to bring some closure to them. He has heard many stories about what might have happened, but they're just rumor and speculation, he said. We would like to let the evidence speak. We're open to any tips or information anyone has, especially from anybody that knew Keith Mann, especially in the weeks and months prior to his disappearance. If anyone can remember anything that seemed odd or out of the ordinary, I feel like somebody knows something. Somebody knows something. Somebody always knows something. It just is going to depend on when they decide to tell what they know. Keith's fiance married and has children. His younger sisters, Brittany and Sarah, have grown up, and Deborah and Greg are now grandparents. Brittany and Sarah are his half sisters, but they were all pretty close. His parents feel like they've never left 1997. We need to know one way or the other, Deborah said simply. We've been in limbo. We need help, Greg pleads. He knows someone knows something about his son. I don't know if you're a Christian, he said. I am. People's faith during times like this, and now they continue to share that faith. It always astounds me. I'm not saying that it's wrong. I'm a Christian. It just, when you think about your faith being tested, that is one that is so overwhelming. I am. God has carried us through. Keith Mann disappeared May 10th, 1997, over Mother's Day weekend. His family is renewing their efforts to find him. His sister Brittany designed a website and marketing campaign called the Missing Man Project. I'm going to give you several links that I use to help give me additional background for this story, as well as the ones that are cited in this link and the link itself to the story. So from solvethecase.org, they give an excellent description of the timeline. So the first part of this video, I shared with you the background of the case. Now I'm going to share with you the timeline of the events, as well as give you a map of what the timeline of activities would have looked like. April 1997, Keith and Carrie signed a 6-month lease on an apartment at the Fountain Gate Apartments. Carrie was graduating from college, and the lease was originally for May. The apartment became available sooner, and Keith moved in on April 12th, 1 month before Carrie. Keith had lived with his parents for several months prior. Friday, May 9th, 1997, Keith and his family went to Gainesville, Texas for Carrie's graduation from North Central Texas Junior College. That evening, Keith was driving a white Escort demo car from RRF, that's Ron Roberts Ford. Afterwards, both families met up at a local restaurant for a late dinner and celebration. Carrie then spent the weekend in Dallas area sightseeing and celebrating with her family. Saturday, May 10th, 1997, 8 a.m., Keith worked his normal Saturday shift at the dealership. Saturday, May 10th, 1997, at 6 p.m., Keith ended his shift at a normal time. It has been reported it was 9 in previous reports, but it has been since confirmed that he actually left work at 6 p.m. He sold 2 cars and had commission due on his upcoming paycheck. Keith checked out a red 1996 Ford Mustang demo car to take home and completed a gas voucher to pay for gas. Saturday, May 10th, 1997. Keith spoke to Carrie on the phone. She was in Dallas with her parents and discussing seeing Keith on Sunday when she came to the apartment around 2 p.m. During the phone call, Carrie could hear Chris and Michelle in the background at the apartment. Chris worked with Keith at the dealership, and Michelle was Chris's girlfriend, fiance. They would marry later that year, but divorced after several years together. Saturday, May 10th, 1997 at 10 p.m., Keith, Chris, and Michelle stopped at a Fina gas station so that Keith could use Carrie's Fina card to purchase some food while Chris purchased beer, confirmed with surveillance video. They were riding in a black Nissan Pathfinder demo car Chris checked out from Ron Roberts Ford. So both Chris and Keith had checked out vehicles from their respective workplace, Ron Roberts Ford. I also want to preface the story by telling you that Keith was strapped for cash, so that's why he was using his fiance Carrie's Fina gas card to purchase items that he needed. On Saturday, May 10th, 1997, at 10:15 p.m., the total list of places the trio went next is unclear. Did they visit other friends? Did they go mudding by Memorial Stadium? Did you see them that night? Did they visit any parties? The timeline is unclear at this point because it had been described that they went mudding, and then after they went mudding, either before or after they got food, then they went to go clean off the vehicle, things like that. I think there was even a recent report that they may have been even looking for a place to go, like a party or something to go to. That has been unclear. I don't know what the couple told the police at the time. Again, not a lot of that has been forthcoming. The couple did cooperate with the police. Chris did undergo a polygraph test at that time and passed it. And because he passed it, they didn't feel the need to give a polygraph to Michelle. Saturday, May 10th, 1997, at 11:30 p.m., the trio stopped at a nearby car wash to clean up the Pathfinder as it apparently had mud on it. Chris and Michelle both reported Keith told them he had to be home because he was meeting up with someone at 12:15 a.m. He did not disclose the identity of the person he was meeting. These details are unconfirmed. At Saturday, May 10th, 1997, 11:45 p.m., it is believed Chris and Michelle brought Keith back to his apartment where they saw him walk up the stairs, but not into the apartment. Keith was carrying 3 beer bottles that were later found inside his apartment on the kitchen counter. One beer was opened and half empty. The other 2 bottles were unopened. Sunday, May 11th, 1997 at 1:15 a.m., a car noise was heard outside Keith's family home in the area where the red Mustang was found later in the day, and that report was from one of his sisters that was sleeping in her bedroom. She heard a noise around that time, and she regrets that she never looked out the window to see what it was. Sunday, May 11th, 1997 at 7 a.m., family first saw the red Mustang parked at St. Mark's United Methodist Church. They did not know at the time that it was the demo car Keith had checked out for the weekend. Sunday, May 11th, 1997, 1 p.m., fiancee Carrie arrived at the apartment for her first day of moving in 1 hour earlier than expected and could not locate Keith. She started calling family and friends trying to find him. Meanwhile, Keith's dad, Greg, and stepmom, Deborah, looked closer at the Mustang and saw the trunk was slightly popped open, unlatched, and an interior panel appeared disturbed. The car was locked, the interior was spotless, and no personal belongings were visible. Sunday, May 11th, 1997 at 3 p.m., a family get-together was planned for Mother's Day, and Keith did not show up. Monday, May 12th, 1997 at 7 a.m., missing person report is filed with Wichita Falls Police Department. And that is the timeline of the events for that day. This website was last updated Let me see, I saw this on August 24th, 2025. And according to this site, the reward from Crime Stoppers has now been upped to $20,000. That is a significant amount of money, and yet to this day, there still hasn't been any solid leads to the police or for the family to work off of.
Parsonage was there, and then next door to it's the church.
Okay.
So we live right by a church.
All right, and so when this car then, when he was parking, it wasn't in the church parking lot, it was right next door. So it was in what, within 20, 30 yards of your house?
Yes.
Okay, it's like right there. So it's essentially like parking in your driveway.
Yes.
It's like that close.
It's that close.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. That's interesting. Now, of course, the important question is, when you look back at it now, how many people knew that Keith, over those however many years, 3 or 4 years, would park cars, when he would go to see you, would park next door? How many people knew that?
It would have been my wife, myself, his fiance, the guy that's supposedly going to hire him at a construction place, and then Chris, the one he went out with the night he came up missing.
All right, so it's a very limited number of people
Correct.
who, being that the car was parked there, and we can be open to the idea that somebody else parked it there. Maybe Keith parked it there. I'm not telling anybody what to think, but it's just a very small number of people, less than 10.
Correct.
Okay. Now, just some general questions regarding Keith, regarding that year of 1997. When you look back at it now, any concerns about Keith? Money problems, problems with any people, of course, any addictions, any mental health issues, anything that pops up in those first 4 months of 1997 that maybe were catching your attention, that we're a little worried about our son, anything like that?
Well, there was a point, like I said, when he was bouncing back and forth, we were kind of worried about him. And when he did come back to live with us here in would have been the first part of February, he had went out with a friend around his birthday, and they actually got arrested for drinking beer in a business parking lot.
Wow.
So he got like a minor in possession charge. But once he got the job, it just seemed like he was back on track. He just gotten engaged. He got the job. He got a new apartment. They were buying furniture. So no, he didn't really have a lot of money, just because, like I said, they were buying things for the apartment that they had to start from scratch. They had to buy everything for the apartment, furniture, pictures for the wall, all that kind of stuff. He was paying on the engagement ring. So no, he only had like $100 in savings. Would have been the type to live paycheck to paycheck. And like I said, he did have his anxiety, and of course he was depressed. After when college and baseball didn't work out, he was having a lot of depression problems and things like that. So there was that time period, like I said, just right around his birthday. But then everything kind of just seemed to fall in place, and we were like, "Oh, okay, good. He's bouncing back. He's, he got all these things going for him, and he likes his job, and things are looking up for him." So that's why we were really kind of confused when all this happened. It's like, well, what could have happened? Why all of a sudden, things are going good, and then all of a sudden it just stopped. What in the world?
And what you said his birthday? What was the date of his birthday?
It's February 19th.
Okay, so a couple, not quite 3 months before his disappearance.
Let's check on the rest. Horn, not work. We'll turn the lights on. Let's try a wiper swipe. That's here. Okay, we got wipers. We got parking brake. We got the inability to get out of it. Alright, lights are working. Storm coming. Cool deal. Alright, look forward to hearing what you have to say about this one. Like, comment, subscribe. And thanks for watching.
So you just heard an excerpt from an interview with the Manns, the stepmom and the dad of Keith Mann. And I played that excerpt because I think that it had some very compelling information for my theory on what happened to Keith Mann. Now, my opinion won't be very popular, and I'm used to that. I don't think that many people are going to agree with me, but here's what I believe. I believe that on that day, Keith Mann was struggling with the idea of taking off, disappearing. Things were just simply too overwhelming. When people decide to disappear, meaning they intentionally leave the life that they know and create a whole different new life, it usually involves three things: stress of finances, stress, stress of relationships, and the belief that they have severely disappointed everyone around them and that those people would be better off without them. So, Keith Mann was going through all of that by all accounts. His stepmother did present that. Because there is so little out there on the true state of his mind, and in 1997, that wouldn't have been unheard of. In 1997, it wouldn't have been unheard of someone not getting the mental help that they needed in any way, shape, or form, whether that was going to be through medicines or therapy, especially in my hometown. I don't remember anyone having that type of conversation, or at least being open to talk about any subject that had to do with depression, especially in a young person. To meet at that time is very odd. That is a very late time, and there's been speculation that he was meeting up for a drug deal or that he was meeting up with someone and it may have gone wrong and there was some type of abduction and murder involving him. There's just so many theories out there like that. But in my hometown, I find it hard to believe that something like that would not have more being said about it floating around than simple little murmurs that went nowhere. I'm not saying that there would have been something significant to lead to a break in the case, but I believe that more people in my hometown would be talking about it, especially since similar circles hang out in the very few places, the very few watering holes we have in Wichita Falls, Texas, at that time and up until this day. When I asked ChatGPT, based on what Keith was wearing that night, what he was likely doing or going to do, it was that he was going to be casually out and about, considering his appearance, and quite possibly going on a road trip. And this is exactly what I think happened. I think Keith had every intention of leaving that night or that morning. I think his situation was so stressful, and that while he was close to his family, he may have been disconnected from them. From every article and every interview that I've seen, read, heard, there is a constant theme coming up, and that is that he was great at baseball, and then he wasn't. Then conflict ensued, and he felt lost. His girlfriend needed them to be engaged in order for her to move in with him. So it may have been that he just felt like he didn't know how to say no, and he did not want to disappoint people again because I believe he felt he disappointed everyone when he couldn't make it happen in baseball. And if you go back and hear all their interviews, that comes up over and over again. Now, I'm not trying to blame anyone for that because you can act a certain way unknowing that the other person is going to process it a certain way. This may have been, well, the situation that Keith Mann was in, and his parents simply weren't aware of it. Because he had a minor in possession in February around his birthday with a or celebrating a birthday or his birthday with a friend, plus on top of him being broke, plus on top of him having to keep paying for a ring for a relationship he wasn't entirely into, meaning I don't believe that he really wanted to get married. I believe that it was a situation he found himself in because he simply didn't know how to get out of it. And for him to have taken the care to go home to his apartment, to take off his clothes, his dirty clothes from the mudding around, which I do believe happened, and that they went out and about and tried to find parties. I believe all of that happened. I do think that these friends were very peripheral friends, meaning he just met them. I don't think that there was anything out of the ordinary going on there or anything criminal. I do believe that they just got caught in the being at the wrong time at the wrong place. I think that he was still processing, not quite sure what he was going to do. And I also believe that he was going to meet somebody at 12:15 and that is the person he was going to leave with. The reason why he left the car near his parents is because that was the most likely scenario where the car would be found, and that he possibly could have been waiting there for the person who knew where that spot was because they'd been there before, and that he was in some way, shape, or form saying bye to his family. I know that that sounds bizarre, but when people intentionally decide to go missing, it's usually a bizarre circumstance. It happens like that. They break and usually they just take off. There have been several instances, and if you Google them right now, you'll find the recent cases and the not so recent cases where people decided, hey, I'm not happy with this life. I'm going to go try to make another one, and they make it happen. It happens. Is it frequent? No, but it does happen, and I do believe in this case it did happen. I think Keith was struggling. Now, hopefully, he's one of the ones that made it, made a good life out of his life that he has now. Because in 1997, it would have been, I believe, pretty easy for him to go ahead and get the documents or get the kind of identification he needed in order to become a different person. I don't mean go buy from the black market, I mean somehow finding a way to get into a life that was like that. I really don't know how to explain it. I know that there's people that because I volunteered for organizations where we've helped people who somehow did not have their identification to get them recognized as a citizen, even though they were. A lot of the homeless people go through this. And so while it's a long and tedious process, it does happen. And many of them were working even without that documentation. They were simply just making sure that they found jobs that they didn't need to, put all their ducks in a row to get hired. Some jobs are very loose on the documentation that they ask for and follow up on. It happens. And it happens a lot, even to this day. So another thing that could happen though is that they simply go and become homeless. And they try to make it happen, they try to make another life happen. They succumb to their mental illness or whatever else could be going on. And then their next thing, you know what, they're living a life on the streets. This could also be the scenario. But what I don't believe happened is I don't believe that Keith was kidnapped. I don't believe that he was involved in any kind of drug bust. I mean, I don't believe he was involved in any kind of drug activity, criminal activity. I don't think it was anything of that because most of everything I've heard, especially from his parents, was up until his disappearance, things were pretty deep with him. He was going through a lot. He was very anxious. He came from a broken home. his mother let him go live with his dad in eighth grade, and he was trying to find his way. He was very shy in school, very introverted. And while he had friends, he was trying to find a place where he belonged, and he ended up finding a place in soccer, and then he went into baseball, and then everyone's hopes gets built up on his baseball career for him to go to college and figure out that he's not the star he was, and that now it's something he doesn't want to do anymore. He feels like he's let everyone down. He moves back home. He is broke. He gets a job. He starts making some money, but by this time now he's got another situation has to deal with, and that is a very stressful idea of being engaged to a person and he doesn't know how to break it off. He doesn't want to disappoint anybody, and he feels like he's lost and out of control. So he does what some would do is he goes and enjoys a last day of running around. He takes a car that he can have some fun in. He goes with some friends he may have some fun with, and he's probably still deciding if this is what he wants to do. And when he does decide this is what he wants to do, he leaves. He's the reason why he didn't put the beer in the fridge. He knew he wasn't going to go back and drink it. He just left it. He took a shower, he put on his clothes, and with the panel of that car being open, so let me tell you what happened. In that red Mustang that was found at the church, when they went to go look at it, the car was locked. The alarm system was off. The trunk was slightly ajar, and there was a panel that was loose. If there was anything in that panel, it might have been some of the stuff he was going to take with him. For example, maybe he put some money in there, maybe put some a change of clothes in there. I don't know. It probably was just a panel that was just out anyway because it was a car that wasn't his that was being detailed, and somebody didn't put the panel in correctly when they detailed it the last time. Who knows? It could have been any of that, but I don't believe that somebody who would try to hide a crime would park it where it was obvious. That is, if you see the map that I have inserted in the video, or go look at the link that I'm going to put at the end of this video, you'll see that, or the link that I'm going to put in the description of this video, you'll see that it was along a old highway that I know gets a lot of traffic. And even at that time of morning, because there's bars and places around there where people are coming and going. I think that he parked the car there because he was used to parking the car there. He may have met the person he was taking off with there, and he knew that the car would be safer there than at the apartment complex where he really didn't know anybody. And while he knew Chris and his girlfriend, fiance, maybe he didn't know if he didn't show up that that would be found out soon enough, and he wanted to make sure that that car got returned and he left it pristine. He left it in good care. Criminal activity, you think that something more bizarre would happen. Why lock the doors? If it's something criminal, why turn off the alarm? If it's something criminal, it's you turn off the alarm because in case you're not around and it goes off, you wouldn't be there to turn it off, and you would, be alarming a lot of people with the alarm. That's why I believe the alarm was turned off. They said that the seat was leaned back when they found it, or scooted back when they found it, and he was not tall. So they thought that that was bizarre, that maybe a taller person had been driving it and put the car there. But I don't think that that's what happened. I think that while he was waiting, he just simply stretched his legs out, scooted the seat back like we all do when we're waiting for somebody, or like most of us can do when we're waiting for somebody, leaned back and waited. That seems more likely to me to have happened, and that he simply decided to say goodbye. Now, I know the family gives a very strong appearance that they were all close. No doubt that there was some form of closeness and bond. But when a person is struggling with mental illness, when a person is struggling with feelings of defeat and depression and disappointment and fear, those things don't come to the forefront of them. Trust me, I know they don't. It's you actually will sell yourself on the fact that you believe that people are better off without you being in their lives. That the way that sounds isn't meant to sound like he took his own life or harmed himself, because that is not what I'm saying. I'm saying that you can talk yourself into feeling worthless and that people are not it's not a gift for them to have you in their life. So I can see himself just taking off and trying to go start something new and be so far gone that it's hard to get back, especially if he had a mental illness and especially if he could be on the streets right now as a homeless person and simply be in a different state of mind and in a different world. People forget that the homeless people are there were once people forget that the homeless people that are out there were once part of a community, of a family, of a structured environment. These are not just people that are born homeless and stay homeless. They are people that were once somewhat functioning human beings and decided to exit the community as we know it. So, this is what I think happened to Keith Mann. I do believe that he decided to leave, and I believe that after that, he has a lifestyle that either made it impossible for him to want to come back home, or he didn't feel like he could come back home, or he is living a lifestyle as a homeless person, something similar to that effect. Again, I know it's not going to be a popular opinion, but the car was left in pristine shape. I don't understand if there was a criminal activity involved, why you would leave it in that parking lot, and why, if you were going to sell drugs or do something similar, why you would go there for that reason. There's other places you could go in any city other than being so close to your childhood home, unless there's a reason you felt that that was a safe place to meet someone or a safe place to park your car and have it be okay in the church parking lot just yards away from your childhood home. Somebody you know who you were going to go ahead and leave with, or maybe just leave on your own. Either way, you would feel safe to leave there, quite possibly in your own way, shape, or form, say goodbye, and then that's how it goes, and that's how it went, I believe. So, again, while I don't believe this is going to be a popular opinion, it is my opinion because based on things that I have researched, the other missing people's podcasts and stories that I have listened to and read, this doesn't seem to be a part of that kind of disappearance where something criminal happened. This seems more of a person who decided that he simply wanted to get out of a certain lifestyle that he felt was no longer serving him, and he definitely didn't feel like he was serving others. So tell me what you think about this case. Tell me how you believe Keith Mann disappeared and what you think about my theory. Please try to keep it respectful. But whatever you do, I appreciate you watching this video up until this point. Please continue to keep putting these types of stories out there, promoting them so that even if I'm wrong, there's some kind of resolution for the families of missing people out there. And until next time, take care of yourself, take care of others, and God bless you. See you later. Bye.